Alrighty, everybody, hi. This is part 2 to the aftermath and lessons of my first ever relationship. Starting it strong with a burp out of nowhere. Last I talked to you, I brought up that I had an opportunity it was 2016 or 2017, I can't remember which one. It might have been 2017, now that I think about it, to meet up with this girl again and end on better terms. And of course, I said yes, because it was the only chance I had for redemption, if I could hope for it. Because I had walked around with all of that baggage, all of that negativity, all of that sense of betrayal, betraying, being betrayed. Whatever, I would rationalize it sometimes in the right way and the wrong way, blame her a bit, blame me a bit, switch, only blame one, blame the other. That's the natural face I make when I cringe at myself. Yikes. Ew and yikes face. But I remember meeting with her. And she... Although, she's a few months older than me, she didn't really look older. She looked better put together, actually, but the same height, same style, it seemed like. Me, I had changed after that much time. I had my Matt Smith swoopy hair, which then turned into my G-Eazy wannabe hair. I had a bit of stubble. I had no stubble. I think at that point I did have stubble. I think I went there in a blue button-down, untucked, my greaser leather jacket. Not the one that I wore way back in the day, but more of a modern, again with that whole wannabe G-Eazy image. Doc Marten boots. I thought I was the shit back then. I guess I did move on in some regards. But she was still very similar, to the point of it being a bit eerie. Her personality was different, that I know. She was a lot happier than she was when I knew her, when we were young. She sounded exactly the same, though. I remember she always had this... Whenever I think back during that time of what her voice sounded like, I was afraid that I would forget. But she had this thing where she would always say... She'd call everyone dude. And the way she would say it always rang in my head. That's what I thought of when I thought of her voice. Was her just kind of being like, dude! Like, that sort of, Didn't sound like that. Didn't sound like a raspy asshole doing a podcast. But she had that sort of thing, and it was still there. And I was like, whoa, that's a weird blast from the past. I don't know how I feel about that. And, although I was super nervous about it, because, of course, given everything, this is after I had been through 2 other girlfriends that... Those 2 other situations... Well, maybe not the second one, but the third one dwarfed everything that I had been through before. So, although I was nervous about confronting this part of my past, I was still able to keep it together, and we actually got along fine. We chatted, we joked, we laughed. We got along like a pair of friends, actually, which is very weird, because I never expected to see her again and even get that chance of redemption. So that shook me up a bit. I remember she also, this goes a couple years after, but I didn't write it down in my notes, so I'm going to say it now, added me on Facebook a year or so after that, and I was like, huh, because it was another thing of like, it's another level of, okay, it's sort of forgiveness, it's sort of acknowledgement that I didn't think I would get, but that's another, I'm not even going to talk about that. That just popped in my head. I wanted to get to it before I got back to my notes and forgot. But, we did leave things on a better note. I didn't have any fantasies about what it would be. I didn't think that, although during that whole breakup phone call, there was the whole, I'll never date anyone ever again, I'll wait for you to come around and see, blah, blah, blah. Crying. Her just being like, oh, bye. Goodbye, whiny asshole. But I had no fantasy of like re-sparking. There was no chance of that. And actually, I don't think I really wanted it, because I did come to realize all the faults that we had, which I've talked about in the other episodes of this little saga here. At that point, I was still very torn up over my third ex, the one that I said dwarfed everything. A girl who became my best friend, who's a close friend. We dated, then we broke up, and were best friends for like years. And that, yeah, so it was 2017, because it had just ended, and I was still very, it was another bad ending. I seem to have a lot of those. But I'll get to that story someday. There's a few stories I want to tell, and that will be one of them, believe me. But I didn't think we would get back together or rekindle anything. I just wanted it. We left off on such bad terms. I didn't want to carry it the rest of my life. Because of that day, we didn't. And I think the friend told me, actually, that afterwards, even though we like hugged goodbye and everything, that the girl, my ex, had no intention of ever hanging out with me again. It was just something that she also felt that we just sort of had to do. And now that I think about it, I can think of what explains why she would suddenly become a forgiving person. Things make sense now. If it was 2017, yeah, I think so. Okay, none of you are going to get this. I'm just having my own revelations here. But, it was a milestone in my life. Having felt so much sadness and regret and just self-fucking bullying, self-torturing myself over things. I had damaged my own psyche to myself. Just inner dialogue. Worse than anything anyone could have said out loud. I convinced myself that I was certain things, that I did certain things, that I was a certain kind of person, that I turn out a certain way. Really bad, really, really bad shit. And it was the first time in my life that I realized what closure was. I thought I knew what it was before then, but I never really knew it until I actually could shut a book, shut a chapter, because I always thought that I did, but I thought it was when you leave something in the past. But that's not closure, that's just the past, that's historical record. Feeling closure in place of personal torture was totally new and really life-changing, because I had never felt that. No one had ever given me that. It's sad to think about, but it's sort of, I don't know, it was just sort of awakening. Like when you realize someone who had been treated shitty their whole life realizes that someone can be kind. Somebody hands a abused kid like a piece of candy, and it's like, niceness, what is this? What is going on? I had that at, I would have been 20 when that happened, when we met up. 20 years old, I realized that people could actually be forgiving, and that you could close a book by choice, not by forcing it out of your head and blocking it out. But actually, again, despite her saying that, in 2019, I got to hang with that friend who remained my friend and still is a very close friend to this day. That ex actually added me on Facebook, and her boyfriend. I actually got to meet my replacement, and I expected to go in there and have an awful time meeting this dude, but I had nothing bad to say about him. He's a nice kid. Still is. When he sat down to that booth with them, and I was just sort of talking with this friend, and I'm like, I'm so nervous. This dude who presented himself as this singer in a rock and roll band, sort of dressed in black, metal music, sits down and is just the most pleasant fucking dude. He's got like a timid voice, and he's just like, "Hey man, yeah," fully knowing that I was the guy before her, if what I was told is true, that she actually didn't date anybody until this kid, meaning years longer than I did, and I was the one who was broken up with and heartbroken. She actually couldn't bring herself, I was told, to date anybody. That's how badly we fucked up each other's heads. Now, I'm not sure just how true that is, but it's what I've been told. And I'm not going to go and ask her or her boyfriend if that's true, because it's none of my fucking business, because who knows what she could have gone through in her time after that, because I had heard that she went off the deep end a bit, got into the self-harm a lot more after we broke up, and was darker, failed classes, and things like that. It's another thing I didn't put in my notes, that just popped back into my head. But he was super, super nice. Excuse me. Fucking throat is still drying out from telling these stories. And we hung out for the day. He was really cool. We still have each other on a couple things of social media, actually. He's still a really cool kid. And, yeah, I have to say, I didn't know if I'd go there and get totally emasculated, or if we would butt heads, or if I would try to, like, out-alpha him like a dickhead, because I didn't know how I'd react in a situation like that. But we got along pretty cool, and I think the girl was happy to see that, because it was nice to get along. We had a long history of not getting along, even though years when we were kids we did pretty well. I mean, Jesus, even my dad has a memory of this girl before we dated, when we went on a school field trip. She was sitting in front and turned around, and he's like, all I remember is she said something about dinosaurs and something really random, and I was like, Dad, you don't understand. This is the era of Paramore and silly bands. That whole "rar means I love you" and dinosaur thing was in full fucking swing. Every girl in middle school did that. But she was very, very happy, I think, to see that. And it must have done something positive for her, I imagine. To, I don't know, maybe that gave her some sort of closure. Maybe. I don't know. That's a cool thing to wonder. There's a lot of cool things to wonder about this. And yeah, that's more or less where it ends. We haven't hung out. I almost make it sound like this story is ongoing. It's not. These are absolute past events that I guess trickled for a total of a couple hours into the future. But the influence the situation had on me and it ended some friendships because I wouldn't stop dwelling on it. I still believe to this day, my friend Justin that I talked about in the drunk text one, we stopped being friends when I really ramped up my bitter, heartbroken, take it out on the world, edgy phase. And he just stopped answering me, and we've talked once in the past 7 years. Never saw each other. We went from hanging out every week at weekend to nothing. And I think it's because of that. It would actually taint future relationships, including my next one. One of the last things my second girlfriend said to me is, the way you talk down about your first girlfriend with your friends and make jokes about this and that is really fucked up. You know that? And hung up the phone on me one time. That's another thing I actually, in the immediate aftermath, in my very close group of friends, this is going off script, I just remembered this too, started making self-harm jokes about this girl, which is just so shitty. It was the thing where you turn pain into laughter, or laughter out of pain, or whatever the line is. It hurt me so much that I had to start belittling her over it. And anytime any mention of a knife or the word cut or cutting came up, one of my friends would turn to me and be like, "Oh, like," and then say her name, or just turn around and say her name. It got to the point where they could turn to me and give me a look, and it was like saying the joke. It was such a running gag. And even after I realized how fucked up it was and wanted them to stop, and I tried to sort of let them know without being the "I don't like that joke, guys," sort of offended, triggered asshole, I don't like doing that. They continue to do it for a while, and they don't anymore. Maybe it's because it's been so long, and we barely hang out as a group as it is anymore. That kind of overflowed, and I still feel very bad about that. Even though I don't do it anymore, even though I put a stop to it, it was very, very fucked up. I couldn't process things, which got me into the mess in the first place, my lack of being able to process things. And it continued after. It continued with other people and other things. But, I think now it's probably best to actually get into the lessons I learned. Because I've been calling this lessons from my first relationship, the story of my first relationship, the aftermath, what I got, what I this, and really it's just been me telling stories. You know what? I'm gonna get a little something. A little something behind that. A little something besides water. I have here a list that I came up with of things to get from this story. Whether it be me, or what I learned, or what I think you, the outer audience, should take from it. Number 1. Moments aren't forever. Sometimes they're just moments. I took my dwelling, I focused on little seconds here or there that I had, and I did nothing but live in the past. I had a tape, how old am I? Jesus Christ, I'm showing my age here. I had a VHS, the orange VHS, the Nickelodeon ones. No, I had on replay, like I was rewinding, playing it. I didn't live in the here and now, or even think about the future. It was all about the past, because I believed that I didn't have a future after that. And it's good to realize that even if something changes your life in a split second, it's just a split second out of many split seconds you've had and many that you're going to have. Some aren't going to mean anything. Some you'll be sleeping. Some you could be dreaming when you're sleeping, and it could have a profound impact on you. But moments are moments, which I think is probably a good reason to treasure them and not dwell on them. Instead of replaying one good moment over and over, you have a moment right now. You've used a lot of moments listening to me speak to you. Use those. There's no point in copy, paste, because you're actually using up a moment on a moment you already had. And that's a waste of a moment. So I think that's my first big thing, is just let things that happen be things that happen. Let them teach you lessons and influence you, but don't live in them. Take them for the future life you live. Wow, that was really bad wording, but I hope you got what I meant. Number 2. Dwelling will kill you and everything you are. I more or less explained that I lost who I was. To this day, I'm still who I am because of those events. That happiest kid ever, who was like, oh my god, all my years of struggling with girls and my friends, and it was like living a sitcom trying to get girls with a different scheme every week, different girl, both of us talking like, yeah, what do you think it'd be like to date? Thinking it all paid off. And I lost that guy. That kid was gone when he fell on that floor, and he was gone. Won't see him no more. All gone. And those things can really uproot you. And it's pretty simple. It's not good to do that. I think I kind of covered that one in the last one. When I wrote that down, I didn't know how I'd explain it. Number 3. If you jump into regret and personal torture, you're going to drown in it. Another one that I've explained quite a bit, that negativity is all-encompassing. And it also radiates to people around you. It's not a good idea to, once you get a taste for it, You can't turn around. It's like fucking lemonade. You take a little sip and it's good. Whole glass is gone. When the fuck did that happen? There you go. I was just taking a sip of regret. Now I'm drowning in it. Totally left that behind though. And don't let it become who you are. It's important to know your emotions and not deny them, not force them under. So if you do feel betrayed or sad or regretful, just say to yourself, I'm feeling this. I know I'm acknowledging that I'm feeling this. It'll help you with any anxiety over it or a fear. No, I'm feeling this emotion. This is what this emotion means. It's a chemical reaction. It's happening because of this. I can do this to stop it. A to B. It becomes so scientific that you can just know that, like, oh, it's a natural process. This is an emotion. Humans have emotions. Brains work like this. It's just the way it is. And it's so calming once you can really understand that concept to everything. Super happy, super sad, getting worried over things. It's so good to be able to apply that. And I think this was something that contributed to me starting that road. I've been a very philosophical person forever, but especially in recent years. So that's a big one. 4. Is that 4? Yeah, 4. Accept your faults and fix them instead of denying them. Self-explanatory, but nevertheless very important. Because you're not going to get better if you don't try to get better. If you blame other people, like I blamed her for some things, blamed me for some, very few things at first. It took me a long time to realize I was probably more at fault than her with a lot of things. Not to say she was totally innocent. I think I've gotten that point across too. But I would have been light years ahead of where I am, where I was, and where I am now. I would have been at a lot sooner if I just accepted that I was an ass, that I was a piece of shit and a really shitty boyfriend back then, because I didn't know how to be one. I had this idealized version of love from television. I mean, I grew up in a divorced house. I never saw my parents together, but I don't know. I never feel like that played into my upbringing, because I still saw both of them all the time, and they got along when I was around, whenever they had to see each other. So, I don't know. They say that sort of thing plays into how you're going to be in relationships, but I really see no connection with me. Maybe I'm blind to it because it's me, but I've tried really looking in from an outside perspective. I just don't. But you have to learn to harness that and turn it in your favor, basically. And this here is the last one. I actually learned this one. I learned this one in the last few days. When people attain happiness in a way that you haven't or you think you can't, it's natural to feel jealous, but also numb, to have it all flood back, and for your perception of a situation to change, and for something you thought was totally over and healed and just a history point to suddenly become reopened. And you look and you realize that all the dwelling and all that life has passed you by, but not them. They lived their life. They actually made something of it. They became happy. And you haven't. At least not in that way, I mean. And even if you can't attain that happiness, or you're still trying, be happy for them. There's no point in, I don't know. Some of you might feel like, oh, it should have been me. Some of you might think, oh my God, I'm a fucking loser. But it's part of life for people to move on. And you might think you've moved on until something changes to make you encounter it all again. And I'll just say, be happy for them, whoever they are. And hope that in changing your perception and deciding to not be jealous, but be happy for them. Congratulate them when you can on certain life events, certain things. Maybe if you change your attitude and start to think more like that, you won't be that fucking loser that you think you are for very long. Maybe you might reach the very same goals that you think are totally out of your reach. The ones that they got and you didn't. Doesn't mean you never will. It just means you have to try for it. So, yeah, those are some of the lessons I've learned from my first ever relationship. I know it was very long. This is a four-part series now. I wanted to tell the story. I've always wanted to tell stories from my life because I think that other people hearing them, if they can't relate to them, maybe it can change the future if they encounter something similar someday. Any aspect. You don't have to get into the same situation. I sincerely hope you don't, even though it did leave me with a bit of wisdom, a certain kind of wisdom that I think a lot of people my age didn't get for whatever outside reasons too. But that was the story. I hope you enjoyed it. I have plenty of other future stories I want to tell. I also kind of want to take this podcast in a direction where I just bullshit about things. I know I won't do politics and current events and shit like that, but pop culture, media, movies, TV shows, things, music, reviews, I still want to do that. And anybody in the comments or anybody who follows me on Twitter @DIDDLOTIC, it's all caps, one word, DIDDLOTIC, or watches my Twitch streams I do sometimes, same thing, @DIDDLOTIC, one word, all caps, spelled the same. I'd like to interact with people, have people ask me things and me go in depth on answers. It's one thing to just stare into my camera and yap by myself about things that I think are interesting. I want to hear what you guys, your input, what you have to say, what you'd like to hear me talk about. Any curiosity, any advice. I used to give a lot of advice when I was younger. I really don't have an opportunity to do that anymore. I would like to use all my life experiences to help other people. Or just help other people have a good time and have a good time with them. I'm down for that too. So if you want to subscribe here on the channel, subscribe to any of those other sites, follow me. I have an Instagram I'm trying to start up again. I used to use it for my music, but now I'm trying to use it for content. It's all one word, The Real DIDDLOTIC, and it's lowercase that time, but DIDDLOTIC is spelled the same, as it always will be. And yeah, I hope to see you guys again a lot sooner than, the hiatus I had here. I kind of didn't want to make this. I realized after telling it, I thought no one was interested, and then recent events made me realize, even if just 10 people, 50 people, whatever, I have kind of a spread when it comes to my podcast. If people get something out of it, even one or two, then it makes it all worth it, Everything that I've learned and went through actually has a purpose. So, I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to go relax and have a wonderful rest of my night. I'm very glad I did this now that I think about it. And I hope to see you guys in the next episode, whatever it may be, whether it's a story or not, just a filler one, just hanging out on a Twitch stream, on Twitter, wherever it happens to be. I will see you there, okay? Bye, everyone.